I dropped off the pig in a poke engine some time ago at the machine shop. I'm going to go check on it next week. I figure it's about time to check those guys, see how they're progressing, if they are or not, and rattle their cage. So since I'm going to do that, I want to take another look at the pig in a poke. This will be pig in a poke part 3. We're going to take a look at the heads. These are vortec heads. I don't expect them to be any better than what we've found so far in part 1 and 2. But we're going to take a look at the vortec heads. These are Chevy castings. There are actually 2 different types of heads Chevy has castings for vortex. These are actually 906s. I forgot what the casting number is on the other head. Vortec heads are great torquer heads. The best way to tell if you have true vortec heads is pull the head off and look and see if you have a heart-shaped combustion chamber. This is the combustion chamber right here, and it looks like a heart shape. You'll see all kinds of heads for sale on eBay and Craigslist. Vortec heads are not really vortec heads. If they don't have the heart-shaped combustion chamber, they're not vortex. The machine shop, whoever did this engine or whatever, has done some work on it. It looks like it has new valves. It doesn't look like the surface of the heads. But we're going to look at these in depth and see what we need to do before I take it back to the machine shop. So let's check it out. Alright, whoever did the work on the heads did some kind of mild cleaning up, little mild porting, polishing. As you can see right here on the intake runners. I don't really like for somebody to port or polish heads, especially when they don't know what they're doing, which is obviously the case here. But anyway, they have been mildly ported and polished. What really puzzles me is that they went to the trouble to polish these intake runners. Why? They left all the casting flashes and didn't bother cleaning that up. See right here? Let me get something to point with here. Right here. See all the sharp edges right there, the casting flash? Where the oil drains back? They didn't bother to clean that up. That's just metal waiting to fall into the engine. If you're going to go ahead and clean up the heads, why not remove the casting flash? Here's another area. All those. Like I said, this is not a very good job, so we're going to check it out. And then I'm going to send it down to Mike Bailey, my machine shop genius, and let him take a look at it. Okay, it looks like we have good, not good, I don't know what they are actually, but they're new retainers, locks and springs on the top side here. Also, they machined the block, tapped the holes for guide plates and screw-in studs. That's a plus. I believe Vortex come with pressed-in studs, so these have been machined for guides and screw-in studs. Might be worth keeping these heads. I was fortunate enough when I was a young man to have 2 very smart guys teach me. One was Elmer Birch. Elmer was a great general mechanic. He taught me automatic transmissions and a lot of other things. The other guy I considered my daddy, because my daddy got killed when I was very young. And Marshall Jurgen took me in, and he was a genius. Marshall was a genius. He worked on race car engines, suspensions, that sort of thing, and he was a genius, and he taught me a lot. One day, Marshall said, grab a hammer and a bucket of about a gallon of kerosene of fuel oil, we're going to go pick up some heads. And I thought, that's strange, Marshall, why are we doing that? He said, don't question me, son, just do what I said. So we go to the machine shop, and we get ready to pick up the heads, and we'll use this as an example, and we'll check it and see like he did. He said, all right, watch this. So he got his hammer, he bumped the top of each spring lightly, just to make sure all the valves are properly seated. And then he told me to start pouring diesel fuel, kerosene, whatever I had into these intake ports. And I said, okay, so we're going to pour some in. And I said, Marshall, what in the world are you doing? So he said, watch. And I'm going to lock this up. Check your intake valves. Your larger valves, of course, are the intake valves. Check your intake valves. If you see that kerosene or fuel oil start leaking out around these valves, I'm not accepting the heads. So we had one head that actually was leaking around one of the valves, and he told man, redo it. The guy said, why? He said, this valve's leaking. Kerosene's leaking out of here. He said, that doesn't mean anything. He said, well, why are the rest of them sealing and this one not? Redo the head. I'll come back and check at a later date. So as you can see, there's nothing leaking from the intake valves here. It looks like they have a good seal. So we're going to turn the head over now and do it on the exhaust side. See if anything leaks there. Okay, we're going to do the same things for the exhaust valves too. The smaller valves are your exhaust valves. And I'm just going to pour some of this solvent in there in each port. Pretty much fill them up. And see if we have any leakage on the exhaust valve sides. And rotate that back. That's going to spill on the back side of the head. Okay, so now we're looking for any kind of kerosene or fluid leaking from around the exhaust valves. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't know how true that is. I don't know if that makes the difference between a good valve job and or not a good valve job. That's just something that he taught me. And I didn't question the man. He was a genius. You guys have any input on that? I'd love to hear it. But I see all of these are dry as a bone, which indicates to me at least we should have a good seal between the valves and the valve seats. Thank you, Marshall. I miss you, buddy. You meant a lot to me. I like to run a mill bastard file over my heads, and you can see that these are not really bad. These are not too bad right off the bat. And what I'll do is I'll take it to the machine shop, and the machine shop actually gets a precision straight edge. This is a ruler, it's not a precision straight edge. But they'll sit the precision straight edge across the block in various places and then run a feeler gauge underneath to make sure that head is square and it doesn't need resurfacing. But it's kind of something similar to that. For me, run the flat mill bastard file across, and then when I go there I got a pretty good indication, and so does the machine shop right off the bat, whether those heads need to be surfaced or not. Tina raised the question, how do I know? How do I know what's good or what's bad? Well, you can see the shiny areas where the file hit the head. That means you surface that area, you touch that area, surface with the file. But you see an area like this right here where it's all rusty and nothing has touched it. You can see the file marks on either side, but the file didn't hit that part of the head. That's a lower part of the head. That's a little low area. It may not be low enough to make any difference. I'm not going to make the call, but that's one of the questions she raised, and I guess I should have mentioned it earlier when I was running the file across the head. Shiny spots are where it's hit the head. It gives you an indication where it hasn't hit, where you have a low area. There's the original rusty looking casting. Here's the valve guide. There's no valve seat. I don't know what the deal is, but generally I always use a PC tool and grind this down so I can put an umbrella type seal on here. But there's no seal here, obviously, and I understand that vortec heads have problems with the spring binding if you have a high lift cam, so I'm going to get Mike or Buddy to check that out too and see if we need to do some additional work to the valve guide. But no valve seals, so another plus for the builder. Years ago, they took the tetraethyl lead out of gasoline and did several things. One is to kill the octane rating. That's why we have such low compression engines, and they're not nearly as powerful as they would be if you had high compression pistons in there. And without the lead acts as a cushion between the valve and the seat. And with the lead being out, it's a softer material, the valve actually beats the seat out. I've seen them beat the seats out completely to where the guide and everything was completely worn out just because of unleaded fuel. Somebody running unleaded fuel. This one has a hardened seat. They put the hardened seat on the exhaust valve side. This one has a hardened seat. It's been put into the head. I'm not sure if that was done by the factory or done by whoever did the valve job, but it does have hardened exhaust valve seats. I'll try to get a different shot of it so you can see where it was inserted into the head. Here's the hardened insert right here. You can see it. Hopefully, right, you can see it. It ends right there at the end of the pencil point, and then it turns into the cast iron head from here. You can see where it's been pressed into the head. That's your hardened seat. Tina's trying to keep me honest here. She asked the question she didn't understand about the valve face and the valve seat and the lead cushion. So here's the valve right here, and this is your valve face, and right here is the valve seat. This valve is constantly moving up and down like this. When you have the leaded gasoline, the gasoline would be deposited between here and here. The seat and the face is soft, and it would act as a cushion to keep the valve from beating out the seat and wearing out the valve. Now we have unleaded gasoline. We don't have that lead cushion anymore preventing this, so that's why you put the hard seat in there so the engine will last longer, so the valve job will last longer. Did that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. This chick auto mechanic in training keeps asking more questions. She said if there's a hardened seat under the exhaust valve, why is there not one underneath the intake valve? The intake valve is cooler. It takes the cool gasoline fuel air mixture in here, so this valve runs much cooler and it doesn't wear it out nearly as fast. Once the ignition takes place into the combustion chamber and in the pistons, I hit the camera, in the cylinder, then it's extremely hot gas. The exhaust valve takes all the heat. So, and plus the exhaust gas, the hot exhaust valve is exiting through the valve into the runner out to your exhaust manifold. So this runs a lot hotter than that does. Therefore, hardened seat here, cooler, you don't need a harder seat. Hope that got you straight? Yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm not sure you can see this, but I'm rocking this valve back and forth. There's a good bit of movement in there. So I'm going to guess those valve guides, or at least this valve guide, may be worn out. That's not a good sign either. Another thing, vortec heads are bad to crack. Bad to crack in this area here. So when I take the heads to get them checked out, I want to make sure that he magnafluxes the heads, make sure there's no cracks, and then check each guide, which Buddy does that, and so does Mike. They do a really good job. They'll check that and make sure, and to make the decision whether or not the guide needs to be replaced. You don't want too much motion in there. Alright, to sum up the head and this video, we have vortec heads we were thinking about putting on back on the pig and the poke engine. We have no valve seals. Valve guides don't look really good. We have new valves. We have what appears to be new springs. Retainers look new. And it looks like new locks. I'm not sure how square the surface is. We may have to shave 1 or 2 thousandths off of there to make sure we get a good seal. But I think the heads, if they're not cracked, if they magnaflux and they check out okay, I think the head probably be worth salvaging, and we can put them use them on the pig and the poke engine. Alright, I hope that was some information that you find useful. Maybe you already know it, you probably know more than I do about it, but that's my limited knowledge on vortec heads. Appreciate you guys watching. Thanks. Don't be too hard on me. 6 days a week I eat beans, sprouts, Brussels, whatever. All veggie, healthy. You know the scene. But on the man cave days, which is usually Sunday afternoon, this is it. Can't wait.